Yeah, college really is a lovely thing. Well, it's about a week until I'm supposed to graduate with one of those fancy computer degrees, right? And then I'm off to build a better future, or whatever I was told a couple years ago, right? I've dedicated about 4 years of my mortal existence to the School of Library and Information Science at the University of Illinois. Like, they don't call it this anymore, but that's what I studied, so that's what I call it. Thing is, I don't really anticipate my graduation as this sort of grand ceremony celebrating my academic journey or whatever. Maybe that's a bit of a bummer, but what happened, really? What happened? If you're anything like me, right, you grew up thinking that these lofty ideas of liberty and justice for all were like realistic, universal ambitions shared by everybody, right? That inequality must be a problem of the past if kids like me can grow up seeing a black president on television. Now, as I grew up, I loved what I was hearing on kid shows and things like that about science, technology, this, idea that it was growing in power, right? And that it will inevitably sort of just create good for all mankind by unifying us across borders in the creation and communication of knowledge or something like that. At the development of, this information technology is this politically neutral, ethically good thing. And contributing to that development was, it felt like the good that I was meant to bring into the world, right? And I found myself sort of growing up adhered to this philosophy of technological determinism. Well, that's what I know it's called now. This sort of idea that if we build more iPhones or create artificial intelligence to solve all of our problems or whatever, then yeah, the world is going to be a better place, plain and simple. The future was lit bright, right, by these monitors of silicon contraptions crunching numbers 1,000,000 times faster than the speed of sound, but it turns out that this was total bullshit, and that this too was just another one of those tricks, another rich man's trick. Now, I got old and eventually went to college, right? And injustice, right, and inequality were phrases that were thrown around, a great deal in the humanities focused courses that I took. I came to college sort of considering these like these liberal buzzwords, artifacts of the political climate that I, sort of grew up online in, say, between like 2015 and 2019. And now as a college student, just like I was hearing back then, I would have to face these sort of linguistic weapons of mass seduction in order to get my tech degree, and then just grind leak code until I ended up as another morally bankrupt yuppie in Silicon Valley. I grew up seeing a black president on television after all, and the orange fellow being racist was a problem of the past. We got Joe Biden now. The world's back to normal, everybody. It's a normal old white guy. And really, in these college classrooms, in the discussions where we focus on injustice, these discussions really did seem firmly situated in this sort of archaic context.
Yes, Brandon, that's absolutely right. Justice is a thing that rich white countries trade to poor brown countries in exchange for building Nike factories. Liberty is something that happens when we teach Somalians how to mine Bitcoin. Based on the 29 pages of readings, equality is if your country doesn't have it, it must be because you're not building enough computers, I guess.
So, just to lend like a little bit of extra context, I started attending the University of Illinois in August of 2022, and OpenAI's ChatGPT hit the market as just like this thing you could do in your browser in November of the same year. So I was basically at ground zero, watching this thing hit academia like a nuke, okay? Like a truck, like a nuclear truck full of garbage, a nuclear dump truck, okay? Like the sentiment at the time actually was this idea like, why does anybody need to study anymore if the computer is better at it anyway? Like, people didn't need to like cheat the normal way anymore. Why should we turn in our work when the professors just assign better grades to what the computer's churning out? Like, are these professor guys ever gonna figure out what's going on, what we're doing? Probably not. You know. After winter break, it was the spring semester, January, and you know, like the mouth breathers in my class, not just like the leak coders or whatever. The mouth breathers in my composition class, you know, were turning in these perfect essays or whatever. But really, you know, when it came to like this written work, you know, because I was in this English class, right? I kind of started to feel a little bit offended that my classmates that clearly did not give a single shit about what they were being taught, you know, they were starting to receive better grades than me by turning in like formulaic M dash, like, it's not this, it's this. I would describe blank as 1, 2, 3, you know, this formulaic slop. It was slop. It was the precursor to slop.
Well, you know, now that I think about it, I might say that it felt like injustice.
I kind of got upset, I suppose, and started to tune into the low-frequency undercurrent of anti-AI sentiment. Teachers and students alike actually echoed my frustrations regarding the use of AI on written work, but they did find it very helpful for batch processing information or debugging code. It was like this power to the people thing. Speedrunning my code through AI models just seemed like the future, okay? Less work, more time to like kick back and focus on the important stuff, or what I perceive to be the important stuff, like learning to land my kickflips with my buddy Wolfie and my buddy Max, or like writing this week's best song I've ever written, you know? Creative stuff, like silly stuff. Dare I even say human stuff. Now, fast forward through this, the bullshit composition class I mentioned before, and I enter my sophomore year, right? I start reading these blog posts and these Reddit comments from DeviantArt users or whatever. They're just whining about how AI is stealing their work. Oh no, you know, I'm being robbed. I thought that was pretty much the dumbest thing I'd ever heard.
Well, I've done the research and I've come to the conclusion that the only reason these people are complaining is because they got fired from McDonald's for drawing cartoon pornography on their lunch break. And the thing that really bothers me is the entitlement.
My thoughts were like, as a creative person, if your creativity can be replaced by computers, then it's simple. Your creativity sucks. And you just gotta pull yourself up by the bootstraps to compete in the marketplace of ideas, right? I ended up feeling like all this stuff that artists were saying about AI was just this manufactured outrage within an internet echo chamber to distract from the important discussions surrounding artificial intelligence and big tech at large. And this is one of the dumbest opinions I have ever held. Well, besides the last line, I suppose. Outrage within an internet echo chamber to distract. Now, my sophomore year was from August of 2023 until that would have been, May of 2024. A little something happened within this time frame where I think a lot of people had their perception of technology and geopolitics transformed. A little bit of violence, you know, happening on this tiny little strip of land in the Middle East. And as an American, I kind of just scoffed at this, right?
Jeez, they've been at this for like 2,000 years. Why can't they just figure their shit out?
But all of my friends seemed, you know, like much more empathetic toward the situation over there than I did. They were asking these like crazy questions, you know, and they tried introducing me to these really, really silly ideas that just didn't make sense to me at the time. They could not compute.
Yo, man, what's up?
Yeah, and I was thinking maybe like those Palestinian children aren't all terrorists. Like maybe they can just kill the bad guys and get out of there. It's like I don't know. It's like weird. It seems like bullying.
Come on, dude. Everybody knows that bullying was just something the NRA made up after Columbine to pin it on the jocks, okay?
Okay, fine, whatever. But like, is Palestine just like kind of like a geeky kid getting shoved into his locker and forced to eat his lunch money or something?
Maybe, but come on. If you were a jock, you'd feel kind of worried if the kid you were picking on, you know, starts, you know, like stalking the hallways in his dad's trench coat and like carving edgy shit into his desk. Wouldn't you? Boom. This fucking guy. Yeah, dude, what's up?
Yo, I like read a book, and I'm like not trying to be political, but do you know the term asymmetric warfare?
No. Is that like the new Call of Duty game or something? Like,
hey, no, but
those are cringe, and I do not want to hear about
no,
that.
but I was wondering, like, do you know how to patch drywall? Recent events in the Middle East inspired me to use my dad's shotgun to kill the spider living in my bathroom.
Now, things progressed. And eventually we started hearing about how artificial intelligence systems developed by the Israeli Defense Force, their intelligence arm, Unit 8200. They were developing these systems such as Lavender, right, which were being used to make bombing people more efficient. It was an advanced targeting system.
Oh, right. We're being productive. Like me with my homework. Wait, genociding people isn't homework? Professor, I think Israel is cheating at genocides.
Somehow, once I started hearing about the tech aspect, the AI aspect, you know, that's what convinced me to finally, you know, actually pick up a book about what was going on with this whole Israel thing. And I discovered the rabbit hole of colonial Zionist ideology.
Holy shit, this is horrible. This is just like a list of all the horrible things you can do to people. Like, all of this stuff is bad. Oh my god.
Now, I spent a month or two down this rabbit hole, well, initially, realizing that a lot of this stuff that I'd heard from my friends wasn't just absolutely correct about, like, oh yeah, they're doing genocide. They were actually being a little polite, a little, you know, wearing kid gloves, so to speak, you know, when it came to criticizing the actions of the political nation state, the Zionist ethno-state of Israel. So I started to look a little further beyond my echo chamber in order to discover more about how technology was being used in places outside of the United States, Canada, England, Western Europe, you know. In other words, I had to study really, really hard in order to redevelop like human empathy beyond borders. After spending years just getting like brainwashed by colonial technologist propaganda.
Damn it, dude. This is also really, really bad. Why do we keep doing this? I thought we were the good guys. Are we the good guys?
And this is where I finally realized that the technologists really were the bad guys.
All right, just to briefly interrupt, right? This is editing, Owen. I spent way too long, you know, like making the first bit of this video like fancy, you know? The rest of this is just a podcast. Just listen to it like a podcast, okay? Okay, yeah, cool.
With all that preamble out of the way, this is where I start to get a little bit, how do you say, dark woke? Alright, now, I'd like you to listen very, very closely to what I'm about to say, because my thesis might just be your black pill, the thing that finally gets you to care. So the massive export of digital platforms which support social networks, education systems, healthcare, surveillance systems, of course, and then the AI veneer slapped over all the top of that, right? To less developed countries in what we call the global south, is to some degree intentionally perpetuating colonial power hierarchies. Colonial power hierarchies is a lot of words. Colonial power hierarchies by creating a captive market of data slaves, securing the future of these hierarchies during the twilight of Western society's industrial age into this oncoming age of data. We're kind of fighting a war to see how many people we can swindle onto our platforms before, China gets to them or something. Because that's what the US loves to do, is to plant their flag in the ground first. And yeah, a lot of my research with this stuff focuses on South America because for whatever fucking reason, our guys are like chronically unable to resist treating the entire South American continent as guinea pigs in the most insane, sadistic science experiments you will ever read about. Okay, you get what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm... The trend continues with big tech. And for whatever reason, a lot of people have a lot of difficulty, as I did, extending their empathy, their perspective of basic human rights and moral good past the equator. It's a very difficult thing for us Americans. So, because I intend to talk to Americans such as myself with this video, let's just run through a really reductive, condensed, simplified history of the horrors of Iberian colonialism on the South American continent. We gotta go over this whole, God, golden glory thing in order to establish what the fuck a colonial power hierarchy is. Because if we don't, you're just going to think, as I did, that it's another one of these wacky, unimportant buzzword ideas that they teach college kids about so they keep paying universities to hate America or spread woke or turn your kids trans or whatever.
Listen, bro, I'm starting to think these college kids might be onto something.
I don't fucking know. Alright, get ready. Here's your crash course. So, starting in the latter half of the 15th century, right? 1492 Ocean Blue or whatever. Spain and Portugal pull up to this giant continent across the ocean. The various groups of people in this region have developed their own, their unique systems, ontologies, epistemologies, their own unique systems of existing as living things capable of creating and sharing knowledge about the world, particularly in ways which, relative to the Western cultures of the time, centered around, the environment, the natural world, Crazy idea. And of course, there are some pretty fucking huge problems with this. First off, the weather in this region, and the flora and fauna, the natural resources of the region, are very impressive, relatively unexploited. Second, these people's souls have not been saved. They're not Catholic yet, in other words. And, even worse than their souls not belonging to God, right? Their bodies, land, and resources didn't belong to Spain and Portugal. So, Spain and Portugal have a pretty big problem with this for the next, 300 years? 400 years, depending on whose account you want to take. So, how do they deal with this?
Alright, hold up. To briefly interrupt, I avoided softening my words here in order to make you uncomfortable and force you to reflect on the history of our world. Self-censorship softens our retrospective perception of atrocities.
Oh, sorry. I was just catching up on my history of things that happened exactly the way that they were described. Okay, so, outside of what we now call Brazil, the Spanish kick off what historians prefer to call a total genocide, murder, rape, slavery campaign to destroy any indigenous cultures, amass material wealth through gold and silver, turn the native folks into slaves, and then turn those slaves into Catholic slaves. And from an economic standpoint, not a moral one, of course, this is pretty successful for the Spanish, but their stank-ass European diseases, admittedly, were, you know, a little bit better at genocide murder than they were. Now, in Brazil, okay, as well as the whole rest of the East Coast, Portugal is also doing total genocide, murder, rape, slavery. You know, I mean, they like gold, but they are absolutely huge, I tell you, on the sadistic enslavement of men in order to harvest sugarcane. Matter of fact, they realized that they fucked up and managed to kill, like, too many indigenous people. So this is when they started shipping over indigenous people from Western Africa. Yup, it's transatlantic slave time, buddy. And of course, just like the Spanish, they were trying to make as many of these people as Catholic as they could. That's what it was about. All of this was about, you know, bringing God to people, saving people's souls, and not the whole gold thing, not the whole slaves thing. Totally not, right? So, you know, the colonists justified their atrocities through this screwed up, like, passive-aggressive rhetoric, where it wasn't that they were doing total genocide, murder, rape, slavery. No, they were importing civilization and Catholicism to the heathens in order to save them, their God's forgotten children, or whatever I said, or something. But, like, I don't know, like, imagine you're just chilling out in your village, dealing with your own unique set of problems that arise as an indigenous dude, and I'm not gonna pretend that I know what those are. You know, then a bunch of dorks with cannons in their hands, right? Just like decimate 9 out of 10 of your homies, and then you end up reliant on this fucked up infrastructure of servitude, which was created solely to exploit you and your land for all it's worth. And the guys exploiting you say that they're saving your soul. That's hard power, baby. Okay, yeah, okay, so good review. Hard power, in this sense, at least the colonial sense, is a very sadistic, very evil thing, you know? It brings sudden domination to a region, you know, compliance or consequences, that sort of thing, you know? But what if, theoretically, you didn't need to kill a bunch of people in order to make them compliant? What if, following the most brutal period of colonial expansion in the last millennium, the world sort of gradually decided that maybe it isn't cool to do genocide? There are some exceptions. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little fixated on what these guys are up to. What I guess I really mean here is, like, what if you can grift people, you know, into generating endless money for you through their dependence on your systems, right? For information, maybe employment, maybe education, healthcare, communication, maybe even entertainment, who knows, right? Then in the background, you can solidify their dependence on your stuff by having them hand over their natural resources to support what you're doing for them, this good thing that you're doing for them. You know, maybe you tell them, too. Maybe you tell them that your presence is necessary, and that without it, there's really no way that their silly little culture of worshipping the trees, or whatever I said earlier, you know, will ever become civilized without accepting these rules on how to live, how to know, how to be. Now, what if, like, unlike that Iberian fiasco that I discussed earlier, you don't have to kill 90% of the people in the region in order to establish this dependence, this reliance. That's soft power, baby. Now, the easiest way to do this, a way that's really already proven quite effective, is a little something that the top minds in the field have dubbed digital colonization, or as I like to call it, techno-colonialism. So what fuels this? Greed, but it's always greed. It's always a mix of greed and sadism with these guys, right? But the mask that this greed and this sadism wears is what Dr. Paula Ricarte, there we go, never took Spanish, has coined the digitalization imperative. And that's the push for this super cool, modern, like pseudo-universalist future where if you're not already working with big tech to make it happen in your country, then you're screwed. You're never going to become civilized. That'd be a terrible, terrible thing. Now, we should probably, take a look at what this looks like. That's right, we made it this far into the video, just setting up context. That's because, why is that, you may ask? It's because, right, if you tried talking to me about this at the start of my illustrious academic journey, I would probably think that techno-colonialism, right, was a term made up by professors or whatever to like complain about how awesome computers are making our world. Maybe you're that guy. Maybe you're that guy. And I really don't hate you for being that guy, like sincerely. Because our current socio-political system is a beautifully crafted process of like churning out those guys. I'm not that guy anymore because I finally got pissed enough at getting shitty grades through avoiding artificial intelligence, right? That my calcified little frontal lobe finally broke from its microplastic cocoon and started dirty bulking on esoteric knowledge about the true intentions of our technocratic overlords. So, let's crack open the Zotero library and get to work. I guess this is the research portion of my final project. Let's go. All right, so first off, we have what researchers have termed the power imbalance problem. Let's just pull out some statistics, right, about power players in the public cloud sector. First off, right, we got the issue of high-income countries, right, just completely swallowing the market for any type of high-powered internet server. Our lovely United States host 50% of secure internet servers across the globe, while other high-income countries make up 41%, right? 91% is held by high-income countries of these, these high-powered secure servers, which means that the entire rest of the world owns 9% of these servers. So yeah, they might purchase access to a slice of that 91%, but it's a subscription model. They don't own anything. And afterwards, if they try to own anything, it's practically impossible for countries to find a foothold in such a saturated market. And moving on, let's talk market share of cloud computing, etc. Right? In the third quarter of 2025, Amazon held 29% of the global cloud market through AWS. Microsoft through Azure held 20%, and Google held 13%. So that's 62% of the market. Following that, these guys accounted for 67% of global spending on public cloud platforms, cloud computing platforms. So let's say you're chilling in like Peru and you want to start a business that relies on cloud infrastructure. Survey says you're probably going through the big three. Stuff starts getting, there's a little bug, stuff starts getting, alright, this fucker's gotta die. I gotta, hold on. Stuff starts getting pretty fragmented after the big three. I'm leaving that out for the sake of time because, you know, I gotta finish this project eventually. That's a massive consolidation of power. Now, continuing on the power imbalance thing, let's talk AI directly. Well, there are plenty of countries in, yet again, what we call the global south, that have, begun adopting AI tools, massive data processing tools, to do the AI stuff, and like in government, healthcare, finance, education, whatever, wherever you have a lot of information that needs to be processed. Now, of course, the bleeding edge of computing, in this instance, AI, super high-powered cloud computing platforms, etc., that's going to reflect the biases of its leaders. Now, if I had more time to work on this, I'd dive more into whatever the hell India and China have been up to, because they're like killing it with the whole computer thing over there, and America's getting like scared about it. It's worth repeating, okay, that our entire concept of what a digital computer is emerged really from American and British intelligence interests during and immediately following World War II. Code breaking, complex differential equations to calculate trajectories for missiles and things like that. So that's going to be the lead bias in computing until China starts whooping our ass, I suppose. So, if you're in this global south, I sort of prefer the term majority world, but I'm following my script here. If you're in this global south, you're using AI stuff from just the top dogs in the market, who could not give less of a shit about your cultural attitudes, your ideas of what it is to be in the world and to know within it, your unique epistemologies and ontologies, right, that you've developed over hundreds or thousands of years. I don't know, it's kind of a bummer. If you're not speaking Chinese, English, or like a few of the other like just, perversions of Latin, these Western European languages, you simply do not exist to these AI platforms, okay? And that is hyperbolic, I'll admit, but you probably are familiar with the idea of garbage in, garbage out. Now, AI amplifies this idea to like an insane degree, a ridiculous degree, okay? But in this particular instance, like if you're speaking a language that the AI considers garbage because it doesn't exist in its training data, you're just going to get garbage in return. Now, I really am oversimplifying the issue. But language is how we carry our culture. This isn't that complex of a concept. How do you talk about stuff? Well, you use language. An AI model trained on primarily the English language will simply primarily embody a context-dependent amalgamation of cultural attitudes among English speakers. Look, okay, say what you will. Call me an idiot, okay? But I actually, truly, wholeheartedly believe in the whole multiculturalism, pluralism thing. But the melting pot thing that created American culture is really just this like weird PR, like branding thing for another type of colonialism. America has this habit of sort of just squashing together and rubbing up against each other. These like independent cultures until they just lose all their sharp edges, their incompatible angles, right? To assimilate into this one big other or like immigrant category within like our cultural taxonomy. Now, where this gets particularly troubling is with the whole tech thing. All right, you know, it's so much of tech culture is built upon this same sort of melting pot idea. You know, the same sort of pseudo-universalism or universality. I don't know. I'm not the Oxford Dictionary. Right? You have your public relations people. You know, your HR people, the people making the LinkedIn posts and the job listings and putting out the brochures. You know, they're talking all this talk about how you know, tech, you know, is about inclusivity, diversity, right? How cool is it that you can dedicate yourself to this the technological idea that respects your individuality? You know, and as I said, it's talking the talk. Then gradually, the technology itself sort of just chews up and spits out anything that you know doesn't fit into its greedy stomach. Stuff that whatever parts of your culture don't fit the mold, you know, it's just discarded. It's not optimal. It's not efficient enough. Now that's failing to walk the walk from my perspective, because you know, if big tech was this like arbiter of diversity and inclusion, as they like to liked to say, you know, your Peter Thiel types or your Elon Musk types are just like full bore racist now. I think it's hilarious. It's ridiculous. Please, seriously, like, name one aspect of like a big tech product that reflects individual cultures, diverse cultures, beyond this like pseudo-universalist dogma of the technocrats. I'll wait, you know, but you're not gonna get anything. Unless if you recite an instance of, like, say, Google borrowing post-colonial language, you know. I think they have something called, like, decolonial AI or something, and it's like, cool. Do you know what that word means? You know? And, yeah, AI, sincerely, is just going to make all of those issues much, much, much worse. So let's hit the whole mobile data collection thing. Okay, there are a lot of people who could put this a lot better than I can, and I hope you are already pretty well informed about how spooky it is that we're just being profiled, and then our profiles are being traded around like fucking Pokemon cards between like tech giants and data brokers. And come to think of it, if I was a YouTuber, this is definitely where I'd put my sketchy, my obligatory sketchy VPN ad, you know? The idea with this like data collection thing is that it's like consent based, you know, you can opt in or out of it. But beyond the stuff that you get those buttons for, you know, a few folks at Trinity College Dublin produced some research that's gonna piss you off if it'll probably piss you off if it pisses me off, okay? Turns out that the one thing that Apple has ever been honest about, the one thing that isn't a total marketing grift, is that their phones, you know, really do seem to transmit less data about you that is then sold, right? The figure provided by one of these studies is that compared to iPhones and iOS, Android OS zaps 20 times more user data over the airwaves back to big tech. 20 times. They own that data. You do not. despite creating it, which never really sat right with me. You know, or anybody else who stopped to think about it for more than 5 seconds. Like, I blindly make this thing, this data, by using your tools. Then you get to sell it, and I have no clue what it is, what it says about me, any of that. Pretty crazy. It's a little bit unjust, dare I say. Now, Android phones are absolutely huge, particularly in markets outside of the US, holding roughly 72% of the market share. That means that 72% of the world's population, well, the smartphone user population, is subjected to Google's batshit insane data collection and policies, right? If we just look at South America, because that is where a lot of my research is based, you know, nearly 82% of the population uses Google's Android OS and is subjected to those data collection policies. Why is this something that gets me so heated? I wonder, is it because, I don't know, maybe I'm just a total elitist about, like, iPhones or something? No. It's that the way that Android, thus Google, thus an American company, works with your data, deals with your cookies, it is particularly gross, terrifying, and creepy. Every Android phone is assigned a unique, persistent identifier, which functions as your digital profile connected to that phone. This is that same digital profile, right? That is just sort of collected and traded and sold and bought without any of your knowledge, like Pokemon cards by these gigantic corporations, and that's a lot. That's a lot already, in my opinion. Tied to that profile, are those little pieces of data about your usage habits, that, like, the ads you view, the apps you use, how you use them, when you use them, patterns, right? Data. Of course, this stuff all gets beamed back over the airwaves to Google in the United States, regardless of wherever you are in the world. You do not get to opt out of any of this tracking stuff. It just happens when you, like, put your phone on the nightstand to, sleep. It's constantly just beaming data about whatever you were up to that day back to Google. And, okay, you might be one of these people. And I do blame you for being this guy, if you're still this guy at this point. You might be one of these guys that's like, why would I worry about privacy? Why would I don't have any secrets. I don't have anything to hide. I'm not a criminal. I'm not up to anything that I don't want my neighbors knowing about or companies knowing about, etc. So, first off, there are already so many people who have done such a better job of explaining this than I have that I consider this outside of the scope of my project right now, and I'm just not going to address that. I'm just going to write that off as a horseshit opinion. Thank you. Sorry, got to cool off a little bit. Got a little carried away with that whole idea of, I'm not a bad guy, so I don't have anything to hide. Let's dive into this, okay? What is criminality? It's not an objective universal thing. It changes based on culture across the world, and what might be something that you do every single day, just innocuously, like, let's say you smoke tobacco, that's something that'll get you thrown in jail somewhere else. Okay, let's go back to the Irish Computer College people that produced these findings in the first place. The findings that Android OS indeed transmits 20 times the user data that iOS transmits, and iOS already transmits a great deal. So some examples of apps which might raise concern in the whole what is a criminal department include, well, let's see here, a mental health app, okay? Like, let's say you want to be a closeted schizophrenic. Okay, I kid, but that's health information, isn't it? Why is that being bought and sold? I thought that was illegal. Well, with mental health apps, you accept those terms and conditions, so that means you're the product. They're able to buy and sell anything about your closeted schizophrenia that they want to, as long as you do it in their app. Well, how about a Muslim prayer app? Let's say that hypothetically you live in a country that seems to have complicated relationships with its Muslim minority. I have no idea what this would be like because I've never lived in a country like that. Anyway, let's say that data is, bought and sold and then, on your profile, and this profile ends up in the hands of law enforcement, who then sort of just like, tag you as potentially concerning, because this stuff was already happening on pen and paper and in, less advanced computer databases. I don't know, like almost 30 years ago now. It's important to take into account things like John Poindexter's with DARPA, the Total Information Awareness Program, which was initially just supposed to be like all the data about everybody, but then turned into terrorist information awareness and just did it to Muslim people. It's a little bit hinky to me that before you even do anything, you can just get tagged as a potential offender because you're brown. Or really because you have this prayer app downloaded. And that's a hypothetical, but really, does it seem that far out of possibility? I sure don't think so, given the direction of, AI analysis programs, pre-crime, the whole Palantir Gotham thing. Now, let's go on a little bit to the, I guess, the flip side of that, which is, say you have a gay dating app. You're cruising on the down low, okay? The potential of that data, it's easy to see. Blackmail, for one, extortion. People are afraid of losing their social net. It's a little concerning. When you look into things, it turns out that the regulations around who can buy and sell data are very, very loose. It's pretty much data to the highest bidder. And then let's just say hypothetically, of course, that a well-funded unit of organized crime has this data about you. It's very easy to then control you, to extort you, etc. Now, the fourth example that the Irish computer people gave was a Republican news app. So let's go down the list. We have a mental health app, a Muslim prayer app, a gay dating app, and a Republican news app. I don't know. I guess it's I guess it's neat for the Irish computer people to acknowledge that people might face scrutiny for their vaguely shitty political opinions, but in that list, one of these things is not like the others. Or maybe it's that the fourth thing on the list is kind of the same as the third thing on the list, but I don't know. Here's the thing. I would really love to dive into the whole AI warfare and surveillance capitalism thing that really inspired me to learn about digital injustice and techno-colonialism and the rise of techno-fascism. But really, that's unfortunately just beyond the scope of my current project. I have a lot more learning to do. And this is just the stuff that I'm really solid on. Now, maybe I'll get the chance, if my friends say that they like this video, maybe I'll get the chance to make another video where I dive more into these things and my thoughts about them, but I generally prefer to write about them. With this project, the reason that it isn't just an academic research paper or something like that, is because I've realized now the importance of attaching a face, a person, to these ideas. Telling a story about how like a person like this can actually learn to care about problems bigger than the ones that problems bigger than the ones that I personally deal with as like a lower middle class white kid from Northern Illinois. That's because I do think at this point, with where we're at as far as like big data and the direction in which tech is progressing and the exponential rate at which it progresses. Sorry, that thing's a little bit distracting. I think it's become more important than ever to tell people about stuff like this. How you learned to care. How you learned to be upset about it, right? Being aware of this type of stuff, your knowledge begins to influence your actions. Your actions may include like your buying habits, your usage habits. That's really the only way that we can begin to address these major issues, by reflecting on how fortunate we are to feel so like sheltered as Americans, right? To repeat myself from earlier, the whole digital colonialism thing, as well as the whole sheltered Americans thing with tech, it is a rich man's trick. Economically disadvantaged countries are extended this Silicon olive branch by big tech, and then they just get exploited into reliance. The pattern is simple here. If it works south of the equator long enough where people are totally reliant before they realize that something's wrong, that infrastructure, that platform, that idea, whatever it is, will gradually be rolled out in the United States. That's, not a great thing, in my opinion. As I said earlier, with my microplastics in my head, you really do need a developed frontal lobe to pick apart what's going on here. Issues like this transcend the echo chamber of the pointless culture war issues I used to argue with people about. And it gets directly to the heart of the passive-aggressive brand of like fascist colonialism, which our technocratic authoritarian elite have started rolling out around the globe. All while you're distracted by the latest and greatest algorithmic black box to hit the market. Now, don't share this video with anybody, because if you do, they might start noticing what's really going on. All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.